Hear that? That's the sound of a patient whose health data is protected from a cyber attack. And that's the sound of a financial system that's digitally secured from bad actors. Right now, there's an invisible war being fought on a digital battlefield that impacts what we do every day. That's why at Peraton, we do the can't be done to help protect the vital systems we rely on. Because if we don't, the alternative is unimaginable. Peraton.
Welcome to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur. As always, I'm joined by Jamie. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, I am very happy to be here for this special Valentine's Day episode.
Yes, and we have a very special guest with us tonight. Following the Valentine's Day theme, Brian is with us.
Hi, everybody.
All right. Now, Jen was kind of on the fence if she was going to make it or not, but she's not feeling well, so she's going to sit out the podcast, but she did watch the movie with me, so I do have her input that I can put in for us.
Okay, well, that just means you're missing your Valentine. That's so sad.
I know.
Such a romantic movie.
Right, exactly. I know. Well, maybe should I make a disclaimer, because the movie is about a man who kills his wife or his pregnant wife, and so maybe make the disclaimer that we're not really making fun of that. We're making fun of kind of the movie itself and how the movie played out.
I don't know. I mean, people who know me won't think anything of it.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I think the same for people who know me. You never know who will just get a hold of something and be like, hey, yeah, you think that's funny for Valentine's Day to be talking about this,
Screw them if they can't take a joke.
That's right. We've preempted it, exactly. So I don't know, where do we start? I guess I don't know if there was any administrative stuff to discuss as far as the podcast. We don't really have anything special going on as far as the actual episodes go. There's nothing bad that's happened recently as far as episodes not getting up. I was trying to think. Usually there's some sort of administrative thing, like a change in an email address or an update on how many downloads we're getting, but I don't think there's anything to discuss as far as that. Jamie, anything that comes to mind as far as us and the podcast?
No, not that I can think of. Just business as usual.
That's what I thought. Yeah, again, though, anybody listening, if you do want to request a movie, by all means, go on the Facebook page, and you can always put one in there. Remember, to find the Facebook page or the Twitter, just go to mattmovieguy.com, and you'll find the links there for everything. And so that's the easiest way, because I can't remember exactly how Direct-to-Video Connoisseur go, like when you try to find it on Facebook. I think it's just / Direct-to-Video Connoisseur, but sometimes I leave the 2 out, sometimes I just make it DTV Connoisseur. I never remember how I do it, so.
Well, then there's the easy way. So just everyone do it the easy way.
They
need to be going to mattmovieguy.com anyway.
Exactly, and that's the easiest one to, I bought the domain name specifically because it's easier to type. As long as you know it's Matt with 2 T's, of course, but it's easier to spell, easier to type than Direct-to-Video Connoisseur, and so that's why I went with that domain name. That was one of my first lessons in the whole internet thing, is that I thought, oh, Direct-to-Video Connoisseur is going to be this hilarious concept of, me looking like, Alistair Cook with my smoking jacket and ascot watching Dolph Lundgren movies, and then everybody said to me, "So how do you spell connoisseur?" Or get the Google Analytics and start seeing all of the different ways people spelled it to try to find my website. So that was when Matt Movie Guy, I said, okay, I got to do something to fix this. But so yeah, so make it a little easier.
Is one thing I've learned in working on the internet at all is that you have to make things easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, I mean, if they're difficult to navigate, people aren't going to try very hard. They're going to maybe give it a couple shots and then move on to something else. So you have to make it easy. Not that people are stupid, just that, with everything that's on the internet, people don't want to waste their time.
No.
So, they'll move on to CinemaSins or something.
Yeah, it's a lot to type, and I think that's where you kind of learn sort of, I guess, the business aspect of doing things like this, like how to, and it's not like I'm craving people just like, trying to find the catchiest way to get as many people to come there. It's more like if people want to go there, I want to be able to send them there a little bit easier,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's why I make everything easy. My Twitter, my Facebook, my email, everything is Maven 1974. So, if you can't find me one way, you can find me another way, and it's all the same and easy to remember.
Yeah, I gotta say that does help me when I'm making the Twitter posts for our podcasts. It's so easy for me to just type in @Maven 1970. Like that you're right about that. That just is. It's easy to remember and easy for me to type, and I don't, a lot of people that I use for the blog, I've got to like go to my list of follower Fridays that I haven't used in months and copy and paste them in there or try to find them to get them auto-filled for me. So yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes people's Twitter handles have nothing to do with anything that you know them for, and so you can. I mean, I have spent so much time searching for people on Twitter. Like, what in the hell do they call themselves? And then eventually I might figure it out. But you have to do some sleuthing. And sometimes I look at the name and I'm like, where did you ever get that? Like, how does that, who? So I try to make it all very simple.
Yeah, I find that's the best way. And of course, I've learned it, through I guess, learned it the hard way. Would we say that? The slightly difficult way, I guess. I don't know how to say. Yes. So that's that. Well, why don't we just jump right into our Valentine's Day movie? The Perfect Husband, the Laci Peterson Story. So, Brian, Jamie, what were some initial thoughts that you had on this fine Lifetime movie?
Well, Brian, as the guest, would you like to go first?
Okay. I really didn't want to watch it.
Okay.
That is true. He did not.
You were not interested.
Well,
He does not share our affinity for Lifetime films.
I understand.
no, I don't. And just when Jamie originally told me about it, all she called it was, "Oh, it's The Perfect Husband," and I was thinking of some romantic chick flick type thing, and I'm like, really? That you want me to watch that and comment on? What's my comments going to consist of? I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. But then when I saw it was a Laci Peterson story, I warmed up to it a little because I do like some true crime stuff. And what really sold me on is when we sat down to watch it and the credits started. And oh my God, this movie is like a who's who of way back when. I mean, everybody was like, I know that guy. I know that guy. Oh, I know her.
Yes.
I know him. So I warmed up to it.
Dee Wallace made me really happy.
That made me feel like I was in a Lifetime movie just to see that name pop up there, Dee Wallace Stone. I felt, it was like, okay, this is a Lifetime movie here. I was trying to remember the name of the actor who played what was the actor who played the older detective, the one who was kind of jerky? Oh, GW.
That's who I remember him as Captain Mauser from the Police Academy movie.
That's right. That's right. That's what I was trying to think of. It. He was there as I guess he was our bad detective. And I'm kind of wondering to what extent he was like that in real life. Like, we get this sense, and Jen had actually told me about this because she's looked into the case a little bit more. When it first came out, she was a little more interested in it, in following it. And Amber, the woman that
90210.
90210, right? She was the woman who accused. Jen was like, who? I was like, I know her from somewhere, and I was like, oh, she's the one who accused Steve Sanders of sexual assault.
Yeah, she was like the crazy chick who was
Yeah.
going up against Brenda
Right.
for the role of Maggie the cat.
Yes, that's right. Now
Yeah, I nailed that immediately, and I'm like, wow. I mean, I haven't seen her in a long time.
yes, yeah. Now that's right. When she went for the role of Maggie the cat, wasn't Steve Sanders tutoring her?
Yes, or something. They had some sort of kind of thing going on.
Yes. Oh, that.
I just remember she was a little warped.
Yes, that the acting teacher or professor, he was one of my favorite character actors. He had like kind of the goatee and the longer hair. And then, we get that scene before they go to commercial where Brenda shows up and takes off her robe, and like the guitar plays and it fades out to commercial, and we're supposed to be like, "Oh, Brenda, what are you doing now?" And then of course we find out that, you should never, you should never jump to conclusions like that.
That's right.
Right.
That's a lesson learned.
A lesson learned. Now, I don't know if there were any lessons to be gleaned from the Laci Peterson, yes, the perfect husband. The one thing I would say about this movie is I remember when it first came out, when they announced Dean Cain was playing the role. I felt like this was kind of the role he was born to play, more than Clark Kent and Superman. Like, I almost feel like the moment like the news broke about the Laci Peterson story, that his agents were pining or trying to work their way in, or maybe I guess his agent, he probably doesn't have a team of agents, but his agent was like, you need my client, you need my client for this part.
Well, he has that, clean cut, all American, perfect husband look. I mean, you look at that guy and you'd never think, well, he's a wife killer. I tell you, there were some lessons learned from watching this movie. One was, if you're going to commit murder, you need to have your shit together.
Yes.
And which he did not.
Right.
He did not have his shit together. And including having this long distance girlfriend who didn't know about his wife.
Yeah.
And, have his wife go missing in this town where people knew her. And like in a town like that, it's going to make the news because nothing else is going on.
Right.
So that was pretty dumb.
Yeah, I remember thinking the same thing. If you're going to kill your wife, make sure your honey on the side gets at least a heads up so it's not a total surprise to her.
Right. Well, what's interesting about this case is there was a similar case in Boston in the late 80s, the Charles Stewart case. And it was funny when we were talking about the Lizzie Borden story, the Charles Stewart murder was kind of like the most famous Massachusetts murder since the Lizzie Borden case. And in it, Charles Stewart was, or I guess no, there were probably some other. I think the Boston Strangler, I guess, would have also been famous. But Charles,
Probably.
yes, right, exactly. So what happens with Charles Stewart was with his pregnant wife, and he is shot, and she's killed in an apparent armed robbery by a quote black man, close quote. So of course, he gives a description of this black man. The Boston police are harassing every African American they can find. Which of course, it in Boston's not a very racially diverse or racially tolerant city. It's known for being kind of bad about that sort of thing. So it creates this huge hubbub. I think they even arrested some men in the process. And then it comes out that no, it was Charles Stewart who killed his wife and shot himself, pretending that he had been arrested. I mean, that he had been robbed. And then, of course, he decides to jump off the Tobin Bridge and commit suicide. So his brother was the only one who could go to trial at all for it. So this case was similar to that, only in this case, he never said that he killed his wife, right? He tried to go with the missing story, which I think he just never expected it to blow up like it did and become this sort of cause célèbre that it was throughout the country.
Well, that's pretty clear, I guess, because if he had any idea that it would have done that, then hopefully he would have done some things differently, like stayed in Mexico when his ass left. I mean, they actually let him go out of the country during this whole bit when they were searching for his wife. He was already a suspect at the time, or they had their suspicions, but there was nothing. They didn't have the proof, but he went out of the country and Fool came back.
Yeah.
Like, you were gone, dude. You should have stayed.
Well, I got the impression that he just thought he was untouchable. Not that he was so clever or, super genius, but he was like, the perfect husband. The victim's mom was gushing, "Oh, I love him. He's so great. It was a fairy tale come true, and I know he could not be responsible for." Everybody thought he was the victim here, other than the missing wife, of course. But, poor guy. He goes out fishing. He comes home. Wife's gone. Oh, my God. What would you do? Oh, I feel so bad for him. And he thought that would just, play his way all the way to Easy Street.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. A guy who thinks he can pull off having two separate lives, right? The way he did. To have a wife and then a mistress, but not know, you know what I mean? It's one thing to have a mistress and the mistress knows that he's married. And he's not really living a double life so much as he's only lying to one person. But to maintain two separate lives the way he did for so long, and she talked about that. Amber talked about how she would just kind of ignore when he would get his stories wrong about these places he traveled to, which, of course, he wasn't really traveling, right? He was just going back to Modesto to live with Laci.
I'm thinking red flag.
Yeah.
It's just like when he was being interviewed by the police the first time, and they're like, what were you doing? And he's like, oh, I went fishing. Oh, what'd you go fishing for? Sturgeon.
Sturgeon.
What kind of bait did you use? I don't know, bait. I'm like, what? Are you fool?
Yeah.
You have to have your shit together.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just, and he's like, oh, it was like 40 degrees outside. He's like, oh, 40 degrees. It must have been freezing on the bay.
Yeah. Oh, it was.
Like, come on. I mean, even if you think you're going to get away with it, like, even if you think no one would suspect you, at least have these answers prepared because the questions are coming. They always look at the husband first.
Mm-hmm.
Always. That's rule number 1.
Yeah. And I mean, what were the other Fugazi things he did? Like he traded her car in for a new car.
Jesus.
Like,
he gave her jewelry away to his mistress.
Right. He asked her friend, who was a realtor, what he thought he could get for the house.
Yeah, God, he's just so kind. He's all kinds of stupid. I'm like, how did it take them so long to nail him down?
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that he didn't just walk out of the house and leave blood all over the place.
Yeah.
As stupid as he was. Of course, he did, he managed to use straight bleach.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, did you use straight bleach? No. Well, do you mop the floor? Well, we have a cleaning woman. Well, she said she didn't do it. Oh, well, I did.
Yeah.
What? I thought you had a cleaning woman. Well, we have a dog. It gets dirty.
Right.
Okay, so did you use bleach? Because
you came home from fishing, found your wife missing, was so upset that you mopped the floor.
Yeah.
Isn't that natural?
See,
natural, right?
It shows you, though, how the legal system is in this country, where they needed the body, and I wonder how long, if they never found the body, I wonder how long they would have gone, waiting to prosecute him, because. I mean, 'cause it just seemed like it was like that's what they wanted before they were going to finger him.
Well, I was going to say, and they actually mention that in the movie, and it's a good point. That's the last piece they wanted, and most of the time they will wait for the body, because without a body, murder is not definite.
Right.
And it gives a lot of room to that, reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And without a body, she could be out there. She could have left him for another guy. She could have been kidnapped by a psycho. She could have done this. She could have done that. She could have fell and banged her head and got amnesia and wandered out the door. But once you have a body, it's pretty cut and dry. Yeah, she's dead.
Yeah.
And then you can determine, no, she was killed like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they knew who did it, and they had all the circumstantial evidence, but without that body, they just didn't want to jump on it.
Yeah.
Probably for the old double jeopardy rule. Once you try him for murder, if he gets off, well, you could find a body tomorrow. You can't try him again.
Yeah. And he was rich, so
Yes.
We saw his lawyer. He was rich, had a good lawyer. That lawyer would have poked holes in a case without a body much easier than he could with the body.
And I think they kind of knew that she was dead
Right.
a long time before they found the body. I mean, they were looking because they needed to look, but they knew.
Yeah.
And so she's not going to get any deader. So they may as well wait for the body. Um, One of the things that they kept throwing at him, though, which I found interesting, was that they found her hair on his boat.
Yes.
I'm like, well, honestly, big
Yeah.
fucking deal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised, Matt, you don't have my hair in your house from Skype
Right.
because my hair's everywhere. And
Oh God, you have no idea.
Well, no, it's the same thing with Jen. Yeah, her hair. When you've got long hair like that, it just, it collects. It's everywhere. And she just had her hair done. I don't know if maybe that's what they were trying to say, was that she just had her hair done the night before, and maybe that's what it was. Was it like, meant she was on the boat? But
oh, since then.
yeah, I don't know though. But I know what you mean. Like that sounded a little fugazi. Like that seemed to be the first thing you want to say. Is like, well, of course my wife's hair is on my boat. She rides on it with me.
Yeah, I mean, if they weren't married, if this was a I never knew her case, I
Right.
never met the woman, well then why is her hair on your boat?
Yeah.
That would work. But for someone's wife, it's that means nothing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's like, let me guess, you found her fingerprints on my boat too.
Yes. Right. Well, even the blood in the car is still kind of explainable. It's
Well, it depends where in the car.
Right.
If it's in the trunk, that's less explainable.
right. Exactly. Yes.
maybe she cut her finger when she was loading
Yeah,
something
I
up
guess.
into the trunk. I don't know. I mean, it. I mean, there are all kinds of like silly things. I mean, but it does. I guess it depends where you find it and how much.
Mhm.
I mean, if it's on the edge of the seat and there's just a little bit. I mean, I could have cut my leg shaving that morning before we went to go somewhere, and then, climbed up in the truck and brushed a little bit of blood on there. I mean, it just you never know.
Right.
I mean, when you're dealing with a married couple, things like that aren't going to hold water
Yeah.
as if you were dealing with a stranger situation. So I know that they kept throwing those things at him, trying to make him nervous, trying to shake him loose, hoping that he would trip up, although he was tripping all over himself the
Right.
whole
I
time.
know.
So-
I know.
And that had to be so frustrating for the police because
Yes.
they're like, God damn it, this guy's so stupid and we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny. They talked about the lie detector test, and Jen and I joked about that because we both know that we would fail a lie detector test no matter how innocent we are, because we just like mentally just start thinking about and it's like if we worked for a place and something was stolen, immediately be like, oh, I bet they think we did it. Did I do it? No, I didn't do it, but I bet they think I did it. It seems like I should have done it. Like and then I'm in the lie detector and I'm like, did you do the crime? No, I didn't. No, and suddenly like everything just, so I can understand why a lie detector test is bad. Like I don't know if I would want to take one either to prove I'm innocent because,
Oh hell no.
yeah, so
Because even if they're not admissible, or even if it's still stuck.
right,
And anyone who hears that's never going away. It's
Right.
kind of like if you accuse someone of sexual harassment,
Mhm.
or if you accuse someone of child molestation or rape.
yeah,
Even if it's proven that they didn't do it,
Yeah.
the damage is done.
Yeah, the accusation stays forever.
Yeah.
And even if they're innocent and proven innocent, in the back of people's minds, well, maybe he just got away with it.
right.
Which I always love when I'm watching court cases and someone will throw in a piece of evidence that they know damn well cannot be
Mhm.
admissible. Like they know that they're not going to be able to keep it, and the judge is immediately going to throw it out.
Mhm.
But it doesn't matter because it's already out there. The jury has
Right.
already heard it. And even the judge saying, "I'll instruct the jury to ignore that last statement." Oh yeah,
Right.
bullshit.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
You can
People's
tell them
brains
to
don't
ignore it
work
all
that
day
way.
long, but
No.
it's not going to happen.
Yeah. No.
So that always blows. I mean, it just cracks me up because lawyers are smart, and yeah, they know damn well that they're not going to be able to keep that, but
Mhm.
they also know that once they throw it out there, it's out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you got a couple times before the judge, holds you in contempt.
Speaking of judges and juries and whatnot, one of the things about this movie that took me kind of by surprise is how it ended.
Mhm.
I mean, you get the whole thing about him. I'm innocent. Oh, you're guilty. They lead all the way up to arresting him, and then that's it.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, when did this film come? Did
like-
this film come out before the trial, or was that just a story they weren't interested in telling?
That's a good point, because it came out in '04. So that's a good point, if it came out before the trial or not. Yeah, because when was the trial? I don't remember now.
It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but maybe it was. I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head when that
It just
was.
seems as a storytelling device, you wouldn't stop the story there.
Yeah. There were a lot of things with this movie that I think, as far as the movie telling the story, I had some problems with. One thing that Jen talked about, and I think this was definitely exactly right here. I just got the trivia. The Peterson had not yet gone to trial when the movie was being filmed, and he tried to play him as if he were innocent. That's what Dean Cain said when he played the part.
Okay.
So he hadn't gone to trial.
I did want to mention that. I've never been a huge Dean Cain fan, simply because I didn't really watch the guy. I didn't watch the Superman show he was on, and I've seen him here or there, and he's never struck me one way or the other. But in this movie, I thought he actually did a good job. He did pull off the plausible nice guy. There were moments where he's like, if I did it, why would I be doing this? And you stop and go, I can kind of see his point.
Yeah.
So,
and I thought too, he even had the voice down on some levels. He had that kind of that Northern California dude bro-ish kind of,
Yeah, I thought he did a great job. And I mean, some of the things that if you didn't know the outcome, I can see, like, I found myself wanting to defend some of the things that he was that were being thrown at him. Like, when the friend was like, he asked me how much the house was, like he doesn't want her to come home to that, And I'm like, well, and I said, well, or how much he could get for the house. And I'm like, well, honestly, maybe he doesn't want to come home to that.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just has this gut feeling his wife isn't coming home, and he doesn't want to live there anymore. I don't think there's anything so strange about that. I mean, it may seem so on the surface, but then, people react to grief in different ways. I think that there are arguments for, I mean, same thing with the car. I mean, they were really stupid moves and insensitive moves. And then how can you must know she's dead if she's doing this. But like a parent will tell you, and I've seen couples do the same thing. But like a parent will tell you they know their child is dead, or they know their child is alive. Like they can just feel it. If a child goes missing and they're still alive out there, then a lot of times they can feel that, and then a lot of times they just can, after a while, they just know it. They know that they're not. And whether or not it's true, it's just that connection that you have and that feeling that you get. And so people handle things differently and individually, and I don't always think it's fair that we judge people based on their emotional reaction to something when we think they should react differently. Now, like, say, for instance, in the Susan Smith case, I was screaming that bitch was guilty from the get-go. I was just like, just because there was something really cold about her, and it just didn't seem. I don't know. It wasn't that she was like, oh, I know they're dead, or what. I mean, it wasn't that. It was that she didn't seem to care.
Right.
That you may feel like they're dead, but that doesn't mean that you don't care about it. But that's just, I don't know. I never felt like she gave a damn.
Right.
And I actually thought about her a while ago when you were talking about the Boston case with the blaming the black guy.
Because that's right.
I mean, because she tried the same shit, and of course she made some really stupid mistakes too. I'm like, people just it just irritates me when people just do such stupid things. But anyway, I don't know, like I was saying, I don't necessarily think it's fair that we judge people or call them guilty based on how we feel they should react.
Right.
But then so there were times during the film when, I mean, I know the outcome of this case, and still there were times during the film, because of Dean, that I was like, well, maybe he didn't do it.
He does a really good job, but there's a scene where somebody's like, why do you think she's not coming back? And he says something like, the police have just spent weeks searching the bay. you only search underwater for bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he delivers that line is not so much like a killer, he knows what he did, and it almost sounds like a defeated husband.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a good point. I mean, if the police have given up and they've started dragging for a body, then, that's true.
Yeah.
You're not going to be looking for her to be alive if you're dragging the bay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there were several times when I really felt for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just, I don't know, people were turning on him. And at first, everyone was on his side, and then people were turning against him, and I was just like, "Oh, Dean Cain, I'm so sorry for you."
Yes. Well, the affair, that was the one that really hurt him with her family, because none of that looked good on any levels.
No.
Because it wasn't just your garden variety affair. It wasn't just the I'm hooking up with the secretary here and there. It was a complete separate life that he was living
And
in
she
Fresno.
was pregnant.
And she was pregnant, and it was Fresno. So all of those three things put together just doesn't look good in
It was
Modesto.
Fresno.
So,
I mean, there's just something to me that is so much worse or it just seems so much worse when you're cheating on your wife who's pregnant.
yes.
And and what's so bizarre to me is like he had his best friend who kept saying, I've seen him with Scotty. I've seen him, I helped him put the crib together. I know he wants this child. I know he's going to be a fantastic father, all these things. And yet he was busy the whole time telling his girlfriend that he was going to be free for her the day after Christmas. And then all of this, everything would be like they would be okay starting December 26th. So it was like he had no plans to stick around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but then I guess he only met her in November.
Right.
But what kind of guy? See, I don't even get it. I mean, because we don't even really did we ever find out anything during the trial about why? I mean, why he was why he was planning to leave her? Well, not leave her, while he was planning to kill her.
I don't remember. I don't think he's ever admitted to it, has he?
I don't think so.
No,
as far as I know, he has not.
So, I just don't. I mean, for him to be, a really wonderful, loving father to be one minute,
right,
and then kill his pregnant wife and go so he can go off and be with this other woman another minute. I don't even. It makes no sense.
Well, that's the thing that's interesting, because you talk about killers and how they kind of are able to maintain a certain persona. And, the one they always talk about is John Wayne Gacy, and that's the one I always kind of, and I guess part of the reason is that my view of John Wayne Gacy is Brian Dennehy
yes.
in the TV movie, which,
yes.
Of course, is just absolutely frightening. Like, I still have that movie as my all-time scariest. It's just the movie that whenever somebody talks about scary movies and they ask me what my scariest is, it's that one. What was that one called? Like Killer in a Neighborhood Killer or something like that? It had a very innocuous name, but I mean Dennehy, and I heard John Wayne Gacy was not happy with Dennehy's portrayal, like kind of like a don't come near me if you know it's good for you kind of response that he made, because it was so bad. But yeah, I know. For me, like everybody talks about how people in the neighborhood knew of him as a family guy, a really nice guy. Everybody thought he was great. And so it just makes me wonder, like, how is that possible? How was there not a single time that you couldn't see it? And you kind of wonder the same thing with him, with Scott Peterson. Did he, were there things that people weren't seeing that they didn't want to see? Maybe like his best friend who, didn't want to admit to certain things. But, the fact that he was able to keep up this second life that his friend didn't even know about, it just makes you wonder, like, how he was able to compartmentalize, and it's probably a certain thing that made it so he could do these kind of things, that he could commit this murder and no one would even know, and go to work on building the crib and things like that.
Yeah, kind of makes you wonder if there was like some sociopathic elements there.
I was gonna say a term that they throw around a lot, of sociopath, and that's they're able just to disconnect from that.
Was it called To Catch a Killer?
It was something like that. I should just look it up.
I'm sorry.
No,
That was still going through my
I
mind.
know it was something like that, like a killer in the neighborhood.
I think it was To Catch a Killer, if I'm not making
You
that
might
up.
be right.
But
It was.
anyway, excellent. I thought it was an excellent film. But
Yeah, I just that has always been, and whenever I see Brian Dennehy, even when he's a good guy, like remember he was the nice dad in Tommy Boy, you know.
oh yeah, and he had the fighting Flanagans or whatever,
Yes.
that short-lived TV show with the family of firemen.
Mhm.
Um, how many more F's can I put in that sentence?
I know.
But yeah, he was like a jovial. Okay, well, I think he was kind of gruff, but still jovial for Brian Dennehy. Um, Whenever I see Brian Dennehy, all I think of is John Wayne Gacy. That just
Mhm.
is the way it is. But the reason that was stuck in my head is because you were talking about
It was To Catch a Killer.
you
You're
were
absolutely right.
oh yay me.
Yep, John Wayne.
You were talking
Yes.
you're talking about Scott Peterson's friend and not knowing and all of that. I mean, hell, John Wayne Gacy's had a wife
Mhm.
and a family living
Exactly.
in the house with him when he was digging up the
Yes.
the crawl space and filling it with lime and dead bodies, and she never knew.
Yeah.
So it just it is really scary what people can do right under someone else's nose.
Mhm. And so,
And then it makes you wonder, what else was Scott Peterson doing?
well, that's the question. That's the thing. Did he have other women? I mean, he could he have? I don't think he's committed another murder because he just seemed to do such a bad job with this one that I can't imagine that he's actually been able to get away with another murder if he maybe had another affair or something. But I think maybe what happened was he had these two lies going and he just wasn't able to keep them both up, and who knows what caused him to kill her? Who knows if she said something, she got angry at him, maybe she was going to threaten to divorce him over what happened. Maybe she found out about the other woman.
See, and yeah, and his friend's wife, who was also their friend, she was. I actually really liked her character. I liked watching her turn, because in the very beginning, she was all, just look at the media. They're going to try to paint him as a killer. Look at him, poor Scott, poor Scott, poor Scott. They all loved him very much, and he was the perfect husband, and, they had a fairy tale marriage, and none of this could happen, and all this stuff.
Hmm.
And she was on his side. I mean, like, she was ferociously on his side. And then as she started to find things out, then she started to get really suspicious, and then she was one of the first people to just turn against him.
Hmm.
And lost my train of thought. There's what was I talking about? Um,
Oh no, but that character, like how she kind of is able to see the cracks in his in.
I mean, she started to notice the cracks in the facade, and then I enjoyed watching that happen. Like, I don't know how close that is to reality. Any of this really, as far as like their interpersonal relationships. I
Hmm.
don't know how accurate those characters are, but I thought that she was written well.
Well, I think she was written well up to a point. There is a part in it that had me rolling my eyes when she like turns on her husband. It's real
Oh no,
brief.
that was just bitchy right there.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because yeah, used to be on General Hospital. I remember when I was growing up, when I was like in my like early teens, um, I had younger siblings, two much younger siblings, and our neighbor uh, would watch my younger siblings. So my sister and I would go out and play because my parents didn't really trust us to watch my younger siblings. We were we were old enough to be alone on our own, but we weren't old enough to care for two uh, toddlers. So I would come home and my neighbor who would watch our my younger brother and sister, she would have General Hospital on. So a lot of times I'd be like sitting around waiting to hear from my friends, and I'd just sit there and watch it with her. And then of course, I'm willing to admit that there were times when she wasn't over. That I would just be
Yeah,
like, oh, it's 3 o'clock and I'm waiting for my friends, and let's just see what's going on with General Hospital. But
they suck you in. They do.
exactly, and the thing with soap operas is you really can just like leave them and pick them back up. I mean, I could probably turn on General Hospital now and I'd know,
Oh, within a
you know,
couple of days, you'd be up
yeah,
to speed. It's what cracks me up about them is how they will have like one event happen, like say a shipwreck, or a demon possession, or whatever. I'm just specifically thinking Days of Our Lives here. They
right,
and they'll be wearing those same outfits for like 6 months straight
Mm-hmm.
on the show. And then suddenly it'll be Christmas time, and they always have to have Christmas episodes, and
Yes.
they always have to have, decorations and stuff for Christmas and New Year's Eve and all of that. So that's when the story arc will change. And it's like they've been wearing the same clothes for like 6 months, but then, here comes Christmas, so they have to change. And but you can not watch it for 2 solid months and then go back, and then you aren't really lost,
Yeah.
because really it's just a rehashing. Like, you can watch it on Monday and then watch it on Friday and know everything you need to know, or
Mm-hmm.
really probably just watch it on Friday and know everything you need to know, because the rest of the week they just don't move very far.
No.
They just move a little bit here and a little bit there, and I guess it's because it's a daily thing. But anyway, sorry. So she was on General Hospital.
That's where because I was trying to figure out where I knew her from, and I had to look her up on IMDb. Jen and I were saying she was a cross between Sarah Chalk and who was the other actress that we had? We had her combined with two.
She was reminding me of somebody, and I can't think now who it was, but the whole time I was watching it, she reminded me of, I want to say it's the girl that was in Just the 10 of Us, who was also in Nightmare 4.
Not
She
Nancy, not the one who played Nancy.
No, the blonde. She
Brooke. What's her name? The one who played who was in the sorority that was in 90210.
Yes,
Yes, and she was Jewish, right? And she tried to hide the fact that she was Jewish.
yeah. Is that who you're talking
That's
about?
what I'm thinking about. I think it was like Brooke
Okay, yeah,
something.
that's who she reminded me of the whole time.
Okay, yes. No, I can see that, definitely. And also, I thought the real estate woman also reminded me of her, of that same actress.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're just getting 90210. There's a way to just kind of get 90210 in, like.
It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
That's right, yes. How, how do you get back to 90210? I know this one was kind of an interesting one because it wasn't even the actress. We just thought she was kind of like the actress that we saw in 90210. Yeah, I was trying to think when I was watching the film, because there were it has all the beats of a Lifetime movie, and there's always this sense. I don't know if you get the same thing. If both of you, I know Brian, you're probably not as big a fan of the Lifetime movie. It's for me, it's
He does not like them at all.
no, I
No.
hate, yeah, I hate to call them a guilty pleasure because I think that is a bad term. I just liked. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's,
I'm never guilty about anything I find pleasure in.
yeah, no,
And with everyone else, I don't care if you like it or not. I'm not gonna feel guilty about it.
Yeah. So it's like I liked them, but there's one of the things I've always kind of enjoyed about the Lifetime movie is they seem to exist in this like liminal space that's not really the real world, but it's real world ish, where it's like it has to it has to follow the laws of physics, and the laws of time and space. Like, there's no magic that happens in a Lifetime movie, unless it's a Christmas one. Then there's Christmas magic. But otherwise, there's no magic. But yet, the places don't seem to ever be in a real place. Like, maybe they're in a certain state, but maybe they're not. If they are in that state, the license plates don't look like the real license plates of that state. The towns are not real towns, though sometimes they allude to big cities. But when we get there, we find out that they're just places in Canada that are meant to look like the big cities. And this movie had all of those hallmarks, and it was like they kept trying to tell us, like, no, this is real. It's not a Lifetime movie. Like, oh, there's CNN, and there's Good Morning America. Like, you're really not in your fake Lifetime space. This is really the real thing. And I was just like, no, I'm in the Lifetime space. Like, I see the actors here. I see the camera work. I see the fade outs that are taking me to commercial. Like, I'm in the Lifetime space, and I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave my Lifetime purgatory when the film's over, but right now I'm there, and that was like something that was a very weird thing because Lifetime does so many true stories, but it seems like whenever they do them, they don't really try as hard as this one did to really make us feel like it was the real thing.
That was what I was gonna say too. Is that it felt so much like your run of the mill fictionalized Lifetime movie that there were times when I kept thinking, well, why didn't they do that? Well, normally they would do something like this. Well, what, this story,
Right.
and then I'm like, oh, because that's not what happened. This is a real story.
Right.
But it did feel, like a Lifetime movie.
Mhm.
But it also I think was pretty well done. I have to say that I was kind of surprised by it, and after it was over, Brian was like, "Well, it wasn't so bad," And it was kind of funny because when we got to the end and it just sort of stopped, He goes, "That's it?"
Yes, you want more?
And I was like, "Aw."
No. Well,
He actually found it interesting.
yeah, I gotta say, for someone like Brian who doesn't like Lifetime movies, I think the Netflix style is much easier to swallow because the commercials really the commercials extend them out to those 2 hour blocks. Because Lifetime movies always fit in nice, neat 2 hour blocks when they're either on the Lifetime channel or the Lifetime Movie Network, which still for some reason doesn't always show Lifetime movies, which I don't really understand. I'll tune in and there'll be shows about people escaping killers and things like that, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
I don't
no,
get.
you know. But that's one thing that Jen and I were also kind of like, oh wow, the movie's over. And one of the major qualms that she had with the film, which I can't really argue with her on, is that Dean Cain as Scott Peterson only has the bad dye job at the very end, and she wanted more bad dye job because that was
It's a pretty bad dye job.
yeah.
And a bad beard.
Well,
Oh yeah, God! When I saw that, I was like, "That's the best you could do."
well, that's the thing is, I wonder if they really dyed his hair because they only used him at the very end like that, and it seemed like that's the kind of thing you do when you have like a low budget film that you don't really want to tax the script supervisor that much, or you want to be able to just film sequences whenever you have a chance to film them. And if Dean Cain has dyed blonde hair, or even if you have to deal with the process of putting the wig or any of that stuff on, you just want to avoid it, and maybe that's why they only did it at the very end for a few sequences that they had to shoot.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it really wasn't necessary for us to see it any longer than we did because they just sort of, he left. They couldn't find him. They found him. I don't know.
Or maybe they took a look at the dye job and thought it was so piss poor. They're like, "Okay, we can't show this
we,
much."
yes, we need to draw out the beginning more. We need to shoot more scenes from the beginning. Yeah, there were some interesting things about this that I kind of, they kind of touched on a little bit. But one of the things, always like read like Hunter S. Thompson, like especially like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where they're out shooting the motorcycle event and all the writers are hanging out together. But with these kind of big stories, I always kind of like this idea, imagining myself being the reporter that is on location in this town for, however many, it was like, what was it, like 4 months, right, that they were there. Holed up in a hotel every day, having to go see what's going on, listen to your cell phone, finally you get the call, they found the body or something like that. But, you go to the same bar, you end up going to this restaurant that Scott Peterson's buddy runs, because there isn't a lot to do. Like I just like the how interesting that job must be as a reporter, to be the one who's, you're
When they
working.
had sort of an intimate relationship with him too, a
Yeah.
little. Like when his friend came in to the restaurant and and then he got into the argument with the
Mhm.
reporter. I thought that was really interesting because
Mhm.
I mean he kept calling him, I forget what the guy's name was, but he was calling him by his nickname, and he's like Tommy
Yes.
or something, and he's like,
Yeah.
my friends call me that, and
Right.
you're not one of them.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, you guys are really close
Yeah.
to strictly be, guy on the fringe of this investigation
Mhm.
and reporter of said investigation.
Right.
I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. And then the reporter, he was all pissy. He's like, they're
Yeah.
gonna get him. They're gonna get him.
Right. Oh, and he just hit that line that they're just looking for the body. That was just like, drop the fork and walk off.
Right.
You nailed him. That's it. Right off into the sunset. That's a burn right there.
Let's talk about when they found the bodies,
Mhm.
because I did not. If that's how it went down, I did not remember. I don't think I ever heard that.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever heard that they found the fetus first and then
yeah.
found her later. Is that actually how it happened?
I was asking Jen. I couldn't remember either because Jen remembered that it was a couple walking their dog on the beach that found the body, but I don't think she either remembered that either. That it was that the fetus was found first. Yeah, that was
'Cause
a
if
wrinkle.
they did, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and even if they didn't, wow for the storytelling, because I got to tell you, that floored me. I was
Mhm.
sitting when they made the announcement, they found the fetus, but they still haven't found her, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, Brian, they found the fetus, but they didn't find her. Isn't that awful? Like, that's really disgusting. And he's like, He's like, yeah, and and it's really not so hard to believe, as the body starts to decompose, you know, it's entirely possible that they're going to become two separate things.
Hmm.
But I was just like, can you imagine how horrible that would have been? I mean,
Mm.
just the just try to picture that.
Yeah.
That is a really disgusting thing.
Mm.
And the one little throwaway line in there where they're talking to the sheriff and they're like, "What about dental records?" And like, "We're not going to comment on that yet."
Yes.
And the reporter turns and says, "They're not commenting because they haven't found the head yet."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. I loved that line. I just because, well, you know, makes sense.
Right.
And how horrible is that? You
Yeah.
know?
Well, yeah, I remember hearing about that. I didn't know that that was the case, but when bodies have been out to sea for a long time, I guess like the feet come off as well, like the feet and the head separate, and maybe even like the arms and hand. But cause like
Like I guess the joints rot away.
yeah, I guess I remember watch. Yeah, I used to watch those shows. I don't watch them anymore. But those those like ID investigation shows or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, the Murder Channel. I love that.
Exactly, and there was one where like there was some island in Puget Sound, I think, or I don't know if it was Vancouver or Washington, or Seattle area, but I guess they were finding feet. They found a foot in a sneaker on the island and nothing else. Um,
Actually, yeah, that's actually an unsolved mystery where they have found more than one foot in a shoe, but that's all.
yeah,
So they don't know if somebody's out there just throwing feet into the bay or
right.
keeping the rest of the body or what. But yeah, they found quite a few different shoes with feet inside them and no other trace of the body.
That's what it was. Okay, so that was a bigger case then. It wasn't just one person.
No,
One.
it's happened a lot.
Okay,
I
that's
wonder if they could be, drowning victims. That if the feet do come off, then it's just, the feet are being washed ashore, but maybe the bodies are being consumed or,
yeah.
held up somewhere else or whatever.
Hmm.
Like maybe there's nothing really nefarious behind all of them. Maybe some of them are just missing people that have drowned or whatever, and then they find their feet. Either way, that's really disturbing.
Yes.
Here's a gruesome bit for you. There was a killer. I don't know if it was a killer, as in like serial killer, or if it was a criminal organization. But when they wanted to get rid of a body, they would take them out and throw them in the water. But they would wrap them either in like a net with large holes or just bind them tightly in several places. And this way, when they started bloating with
Oh.
gas, it basically chopped them up in little bits and they would just float apart.
That sounds probably more like criminal organization, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like the
and I want
mob.
to say it wasn't here. It might have been. I want to say maybe somewhere in the in like Southeast Asia. I could be
Mm.
wrong, but I just have that feel that that's where I remember
You
reading that.
know what would be awesome for that? Chicken wire.
Yeah, maybe that was it. It was some they
I mean, that'd
bound
be
them
like a
somehow,
sieve,
and
you
then
know?
just when they blew up with gas, it basically just quartered them, or God knows how many pieces, and they would just float apart.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't know about that whole blow up with gas thing until I was as an anthropology major. My professor was trying to explain the different crazy rituals that people have, and one of them was that in the South Pacific Islands, there's this tradition that one group has where when somebody dies, they put their body in a room for 2 weeks and let their stomach bloat up, and then the person closest to the deceased punches them in the stomach so they kind of explode. And then everybody eats the dead person's brain.
Oh God.
Yes, that's a classic. I guess that's a common thing in the South Pacific, eating the brain, because they had to. I don't remember how it worked. They had to like tell everybody to stop doing that because they were
It's not good for you.
yeah, I guess encephalitis was spreading really badly.
Yeah, well, you get mad people disease,
Yes.
or kuru. But um, why though? Why the punching of the bloated
I
body? I
don't
don't get that.
know, and that was. It seems like the South Pacific is where you get some of the most interesting of the rituals.
Mm.
But yeah, he, because my professor studied there. He studied in Papua New Guinea, but of course, because you kind of run in those circles where you're working on panels with other people, the South Pacific Islands. You kind of all pool resources and stuff, and that was one of the ones he told the story about. Was just kind of like,
Interesting.
yeah,
I gotta tell you, the smell is pretty bad.
mm,
When I was working at the vet school, it was not at all uncommon for someone to bring in uh, like some cattle or a horse or some large animal that had died in the field,
Mm.
and they'll be baking out in the field for a couple weeks, and or they'll bring them in to be necropsied, and or just disposed of even. But if they don't bury it, because like most people, when they have large animals, they will like get a backhoe and bury it on their property.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they will either donate it to the vet school, or they want to have it necropsied to see if they can find out what killed it, just in case it's something that could be dangerous to the rest of their the rest of their animals or whatever. But anyway, um, they would bring it in, and they'd be bloated, and you did not want to be the, the pathology student uh,
Mm-hmm.
who had to puncture that, because the smell
Oh.
would just permeate the entire bottom floor of the vet school, and you immediately knew.
Yeah.
Like you knew if you were walking anywhere in the vicinity, you knew that someone had a big cow on the table or something like that, because it was just, and it wasn't like death. It didn't smell like dead animal. It was like you could just smell the rotting fecal matter,
Oh, it
and
was just, yeah.
it was just flat gross is what it was. um
Oh, yeah.
and so yeah, I don't
Mm.
I don't
So
understand that, letting the body swallow. Why would you want that?
I
You don't
don't
want that.
know. I don't know where, and a lot of these traditions, I don't, and sometimes like they would talk about how the missionaries came and told them to stop certain traditions, and
Then
and
you eat the missionaries.
yeah, right. Well, somebody, yeah. Well, a lot of times they'd just be like, "Hey, that's cool. You don't want us to do this anymore. We didn't really want to do this anymore either, and so we're good with you telling us not to. We'll let you feel like you're doing God's work by telling us not to do it. But we're just going to use it as an excuse to just end this tradition that we've been doing for years, that we've just been doing because we feel like we have to, because it's tradition. Um, I think there were some that he talked about, that his people that he was working with, some very like really painful rituals that they would do, and he would say to them, "Well, boy, doesn't that hurt when you do that?" And they'd go, "Yes, it does hurt. That's why we don't do it anymore. We're happy that the missionaries told us to cut it out." So yeah. Well, we kind of went off track, and I know Jen probably is not going to enjoy that conversation. She doesn't. That one's gonna. We may have lost her there on that one. So if she's listening, come back in, Jen. We're not talking about any.
Done with that.
We're done with that. So what kind of a verdict should we give a movie like this? I mean, maybe we should start with Brian, because this is not your usual fare. So for you, as a non-Lifetime movie watcher, what would you give this film? What would you say?
Uh, it wasn't bad. I actually appreciated it a lot more than I thought I would. Usually, true crime stories, they're either I'm really affect me if I'm really into the case, then I'm like, oh boy. If not, then I'm just kind of like I couldn't be bothered, because it's like, yeah, I've been there, done that, seen that. The real world is a pretty sucky place. I don't need to be reminded of that.
Mm-hmm.
This one held my attention mainly because of the strength of Dean Cain. Again, I think he did an excellent job portraying a guy. I mean, he lets a few things slip where you're like, oh yeah, he's guilty, but then he comes back and you're like, well, I don't know. He seems legitly horrified by what's happening to him, and not just in a purely, oh, I'm guilty and they're gonna find out way. You almost feel for the guy. So I mostly liked it because of his performance. I was kind of bummed out that it ended the way it did, where it's just like they show him walking down the jail in like his little jumpsuit and that's it.
Right.
I would like to have had some closure, but obviously it was one of those things where they were rushing to get it out, the ripped from the headlines thing, where they wanted to get it out as soon as possible. But yeah, I would give it, I guess, a thumbs up. There is I bet a lot worse Lifetime-like movies out there, so
Well,
I didn't regret watching it.
I was gonna say, I think Jamie and I can attest to that there are definitely some much worse ones out there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But I liked this one. I think that anyone who is even remotely interested in this case, or even, even if you weren't at the time, but it's something that you were maybe were curious about and wanted to see a little bit more about it. But I think it's worth a watch. It's definitely worth a watch. Dee Wallace at one point, when they actually did find the body,
Oh yes.
and they announced that she was dead, and you have that scene. It was sort of like a distant shot of Dee Wallace sitting on the sofa just screaming, and I was walking through the room at the time, and I was like, "Get it, Dee!" And Brian's like, "You go for that Emmy." But it was really good. I mean, she threw it all out there. It was pretty fantastic, and Dean Cain he did a great job. It was nice seeing a lot of the people. The person who played Dee Wallace's husband, John Carpenter fans will recognize him. That was oh shoot, what's his name? Jason Patrick.
Yes.
No.
Oh wait, no. What is his name? I know you're
Jason
talking about
Patrick.
that.
Jason something.
Jason. Oh shoot.
No, I know what you mean though. I know who you're talking about.
Anyway, yeah. So John Carpenter fan.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino this year.
I was only playing for fun, so winning this was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's #1 social casino experience. It's serious fun. With over 80 casino-style games to choose from, you too could win life-changing amounts of cash. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and give them a whirl. That's ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of a winner.